Here we go. Mark your own. She gets everything right. Number one, so this is a repeat from the first quiz. Now, what we've been doing the past few days is lots and lots of factoring, so you can expect in a few days a quiz on factoring. And in fact, today's lesson is going to be the beginning of Math 10. It's going to be the first really, well, factoring binomial GCFs was brand new, but today is really the brand new stuff. Number of variables, just one, an x. Number of terms, 4. Name of polynomial, polynomial. There's no name for a 4-nomial. Leading coefficient, not 7. The leading coefficient is always what's in front of the biggest degree term, and the biggest degree term is this x to the 6th. The leading coefficient is a 2, a dose. The constant term is a -3. The degree is 6. How many variables? 2. How many terms? 3. Try, or if you put a letter T, I'll take that. Leading coefficient, not 3. What's the biggest degree term there? You know what? -2. Constant term, 7. Now, you could make an argument, by the way, for the leading coefficient to be a 3, because this is also degree 2, even though it's a 1 and a 1. If you said a 3 right here instead of a -2, I'll take it. If you said 3 and 2? 3 and -2? I'll take it, I guess. And lawyer with me afterwards, by the way. Let me keep going because I want to get through this as fast as I can. Degree, 2. Number of variables, 2. Number of terms, 1. Name of polynomial, monomial. Leading coefficient, -3/7. The constant term, nada. You could say 0 or nothing. Degree, 3. 1 mark for each of those, so it's 3 by 5. That's out of 15, isn't it? No, 3 by 6. That's out of 18, isn't it? Learn to count, Mr. Duke. Give yourself a little score out of 18 there. Hopefully 16 or higher, hopefully almost free marks. You have to think a little bit, but hopefully pretty good marks, pretty easy marks. Add the following. Gather like terms when they say add or subtract. Is there a number in front of any of the brackets? No. Is there a negative in front of any of the brackets? Then you know what? Mathematically, the brackets won't make a difference. I can ignore them and just gather like terms. Because I really only got to be careful with brackets when there's gathering like terms inside the brackets or there's numbers or negatives in front of them. It's going to be 3x squared plus -x squared. It's going to be 2x squared. It's going to be 2x plus -2x. I think your 2x's cancel. It's going to be -6 plus +1. I think it's going to be -5. What's this question worth? 2 marks. How many terms are there?
2.
What would be a good, smart way for me to mark this? 1 mark each term? Sure. I'm also trying to teach you the first few quizzes how I mark things so that when you're writing tests, you can figure out how to get part marks. Also why I do this. Number 4. Who noticed that number 2 and number 4a are the same? So I'm just going to wimp out and go 2x squared minus 5. 1 mark for each one. B. Oh, I got a minus here, so I'm going to have to go like that, and like that. It's going to end up being 4x. No, not 4x squared, Mr. Dewick. It's a minus, which ends up being a plus 6x squared. And then I'm going to have -x minus x, which is -2x. I'm going to have -6 minus +1, which is -7. Here, this one is a bit trickier. There's 3 terms, 2 marks, half mark off. Actually, let's say 1 mark off for each mistake. So if you get 2 terms wrong, sorry, you get 0. C. This one I'm not going to be able to do in one step. First, I got to get rid of brackets and rewrite it. This is going to be 6x squared minus 15x. That was a good sneeze. He already has, thanks. There's going to be a -2x and a negative 6. And now, can I gather like terms? The 6x squared drops down like a domino. I have a minus 17x and a minus 6. Is that right? People nodding? Same deal. 1 mark off for each term that's wrong. D. What's being multiplied onto this first bracket? Just the negative 3, not the 2x squared. I'm going to start out by just dropping the 2x squared down like a domino. Thunk. And then I'm going to go multiply, multiply, multiply. I get minus 12x squared. I get minus 27x. And I get positive 24. Then I'm going to go multiply, multiply, multiply. Minus 3x squared. Minus 5x. Minus 2, and now I'm going to gather like terms. And this is a complicated enough one. I think, Cole, I'm going to use my underline cross-out little trick. I'll underline all the x squareds, gather them, cross them out. X squared, x squared, x squared. I got 2x squared minus 12x squared, which is negative 10x squared, minus 3 more. I think you get negative 13x squareds. I got a negative 27x. I got a minus 5x. I'm pretty sure that's a negative 32x's. And then you have a positive 24, take away 2, positive 22. Is that right? No? Yes? People nodding? And same deal. 1 mark off for each mistake. What's this front page out of? 18, 20, 22, 24, 26. You can give yourself a little score out of 28 if you want to in the bottom right corner. It makes it easier to add them up later. And then you can turn the page. Okay, now we're multiplying. Simplify, it says. 3 marks each. Oh, okay. I get an x cubed, a minus 6x squared, a plus 3x, a minus 4x squared, a plus 24x, and a minus 12. Gathering like terms, I think I get x cubed minus 10x squareds plus 27x minus 12. Is that right? How many terms are there in my final answer, Joe? How many terms? Josh. Did I say Joe? Jake. Joe is your brother. Good gosh. It's your fault for having the same, first name begins with the same letter and 1 syllable. Jake, how many terms are there in the answer? 4. How many marks is this worth? 3. How about 1 mark off for each wrong term again? So if you get 3 wrong, sorry. B. I'm going to drop the 2 down first. I'm going to multiply the last 2, gather like terms, get an answer, and then I'll multiply the 2 onto everything. I think that's the easiest way to avoid making mistakes. I'm going to go 15x cubed, yoink, 5x squared, yoink, minus 20x, yoink, plus 6x squared, yoink, sound effects are optional, plus 2x, minus 8. I'm going to still drop the 2 down, but I'm going to gather like terms. I got a 15x cubed, I got a 5x squared, I got a 6x squared, I got a positive 11x squared. I've got a minus 20x plus 2x, I got a minus 18x and a minus 8. Now I'm going to multiply the 2 in. 30x cubed plus 22x squared minus 36x minus 16. Is that right? Yeah? Whew. That much math, that's about the amount of calculations that I start to occasionally make a dumb mistake on. So if you got it wrong, don't feel too embarrassed. 1 mark off for each wrong term, so if you get 3 terms wrong, sorry. C. There. Okay. I'm going to drop the 4 down. And I'm going to multiply that plus 12a plus 24. I'm going to drop the minus sign down, and I'm going to multiply, not 4, Mr. Duick, 4a times 4a, 4 times 4, I'm pretty sure is 16a squared plus 12a, yoink, minus 12a, yoink, minus 9. By the way, Kenzie, is this a tougher question? Say yes. Do you notice I'm being way more careful? I'm showing way more steps now. So you can tell when a question's tougher. Ramp up your level of paranoia a little bit and be a little more careful, right? It's good test writing or good quiz writing. I'm going to gather like terms inside the brackets. So drop the 4 down. I have a cubed minus 7a squareds plus 6a's plus 24. I'm going to drop the minus sign down. I get 16a squareds. Oh, I get plus 12a minus 12a. What's that? Nothing. Ah, I like that. Stuff cancels. Minus 9. Now I'm going to multiply the 4 in. Chunk, 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 chunk. 4a cubed minus 28a squared plus 24a plus 4 times 24 is 144. No, that's wrong. 96? Yeah. 96. And then I'm going to have minus 16a squared and plus 9. Final answer, 4a cubed minus 28 minus 16 more is 38 minus 6 more, minus 44a squared, yeah? Plus 24a. And then I got 96 plus 9 plus 105? Is that right? I got about half of you nodding. Same deal, 1 mark off for each wrong term. That's a tough question. That's approaching but not quite getting to unfairly tough. In other words, if you got that right, you're in good shape for this particular concept of FOIL and gathering like terms and distribution and doing adding and subtracting of polynomials. Number 7, factor A. What's the first thing that I always, there isn't one, but I always look for that. How many terms are there? 4. The only thing I know how to do with 4 terms, if there's no GCF, is factoring by grouping, not groping, Brendan, grouping. So I'm going to, in my mind, draw a little line right there or cover up the last 2 terms, whatever you want to do. I'm going to GCF the first 2. I'm pretty sure there's a 4a. And that leaves me with a 2a minus 1. I'm going to greatest common factor the last 2. I was going to pull out a 5, but I think I actually want to pull out a negative 5 because that gives me a positive 2a and a minus 1. How can I tell I'm right? What was the built-in error check on this line? You knew you were right if what? What are both the same? The brackets are identical. And the final answer was the bracket that was common and what was in front of each bracket. Half mark for each bracket correct. Half mark for the 2a minus 1, half mark for the 4a minus 5. B. GCF. I can pull out a 3x, and I get a 4x squared minus 2x plus 5. Now, eventually, after today's lesson, I would expect you to be able to glance at this and tell me whether that one factors further or not. Does it factor further? No. So that's as far as we can go with that one. But we do have some tricks for trinomials already. We can do some stuff with trinomials. C. Looks like a job for a GCF.
Excuse the interruption. Would the IT technician please report back to Mr. Goulet's room? The IT technician to Mr. Goulet's room, please.
Okay. GCF of 5x y squared z squared. Yes? And that's going to leave me with a 5 and a z in the first term, and a negative 4 and x and y squared in the second term, and a positive 6 and x cubed and z cubed in the third term. For 1 mark, I would say a half mark off for each term that's wrong. What's this page out of? 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. You can give yourself a little score out of 12. And the back page, you know what? We'll make these a couple of bonus marks because one of the questions was the same as up here anyways. Factor by grouping. So factor an x out, and I get x plus 3. I think I already said. I kind of expect you to have an attention span. Factor a positive 6 out, and you get x plus 3. Hey, this one factors into x plus 3, x plus 6. Half mark for the first bracket, half mark for the second bracket. And again, Carmelina, if you wrote x plus 6, x plus 3, same thing, as long as your 6 has a plus and your 3 has a plus. B, oh, I'm going to be lazy. Thunk, thunk. Copy. Isn't this cool? Paste. I got that. Oh, I lost my bracket. Here, bracket. Yoink. 1 mark for each of those. So that gives yourself a score out of 2. Does that add to 42? I got 2 and 12 is 14, and 28 is 42. Can you give yourself a magic score out of 42, please? And if you need to come lawyer with me, now is the time. Last day, okay, we're back. Last day we looked at factoring trinomials. 3 terms. We said, anytime they say factor, what's the first thing that we always, okay? And I got good reasons for that. Please trust me on that. This was the notes from last day, but don't worry about it. I'm just going to do a quick review. The homework from last day was these 2 lame joke sheets. First of all, I kind of want to know the answer. So, oh, pray tell, where does the smell of a skunk go?
No one knows.
They're lame. They are. But, Kenzie, it's a great way for you to tell if you're right. Because, again, if you get nif, n, you know you're wrong. Off, or if you can see that one letter is off, you can go back and you can track that question down. It's the best balance I've seen between giving you the answers but not giving you the answers until having you have to think. Okay? That's it. Baby step. The second one. Why is it better to be married to a successful Broadway producer than a plumber? I'm dying to know. Sorry, what? Full House beats flush. Yeah, Jordan said they're terrible. Actually, those ones on the scale of these sheets are pretty good. I just bought a bunch of new these types of sheets. I'm going to try using them this year, partly because I think it's helpful for you to be able to write on the questions, or if there's diagrams, be able to mark them up. I'm not a big fan of textbooks because you can't write in them, and I really wish you could. I used to always, for Math 12, get the kids to buy a workbook they could write in. I thought it was very, very valuable, except then I had to force them to spend 20 bucks. I don't like doing that either, so I'm trying to find a compromise. Today's homework is going to be a couple of more of these. They're lame. But again, they kind of are nerdily funny. Were there any of these that you wanted me to go over that you couldn't get? I'm going to say, normally, I would say I'd like to go over the homework from last day. Graham, instead I'm going to say if there's a couple that were giving you trouble, can you ask me after the lesson? Because I want to get to the lesson today if I can. All right? Today is where Math 10, in my mind, officially begins. It's funny that this concept is so tough because the change that we're going to add, Rachel, is very small. Last day, we factored trinomials that looked like this. There was nothing in front of the x squared. The only thing that we're going to add today is we're going to say, hey, what if you've got a number there? A coefficient, a leading coefficient. Sadly, that changes the whole game. Okay? They're easy to spot. First of all, what's the first thing that you always, and the reason I taught you to look for a GCF first is if you can factor that out, it turns it into last day's lesson, which most of you were able to do in your head. You were looking for two numbers that multiplied to whatever and added to whatever. These ones you really can't factor in your head. It's a three-line, three-step process. Some of you may reach the point where you can factor them in your head. When I used to teach Math 10 honors, I used to give my kids, I kid you not, 100 of these. And it sounded like a lot, but something weird would happen for most of them around the 50th question. They would just start seeing the answer. What had happened was they'd actually hardwired a circuit in their brain that was doing all those three steps subconsciously and just doing it. And if you ask me, how do I factor these? I factor these by letting my mind go blank, and the answer just pops into my head. And I can't explain how it does, because I've done several thousand of these over the years. So I'll show you the algorithm, the procedure that will always get you there. Some of you may reach the point where suddenly the magical thing happens and you're, oh, Mr. Dewick, the answer just kind of came. Great. It's nice. You don't have to, but it's nice. So what's our issue here? We're looking for trinomials that have a leading coefficient. It's starting us with some polynomial expressions. Really quickly, just to review, what is this a picture of? 2 what? 2x squareds plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7x's plus 6. It wants us to arrange them into a rectangle. We're not going to. And it says factor the following expression using algebra tiles on example 2. We're not going to. Instead, we're going to go to where it says review number 1. Rob, the way we're going to factor these is we're going to use what's called the decomposition method. We're going to decompose them. What it really means is we're going to somehow see if we can break it up into an easier form. And once we break it up into an easier form, we're going to end up with 4 terms, and we're going to factor by grouping, which is why I did the grouping thing the other day, and we're going to sneak it into today's lesson. So if you have trouble with it, we're in good shape. Okay? So let's look at A here. It says factor by the grouping method. Brendan, what's the first thing that I always, okay? Is there an X in everything in A? Is there a 2 in everything in A? Or is there a GCF? No. Okay? Brendan, how many terms are there? We're going to use what's called factoring by grouping. What we're going to do in our mind is draw a little line down the middle, or cover the last 2 terms up with your finger, or you can just use your imagination, whatever you need to do. I'm going to get rid of the line because some people find that confusing. And Brendan, we're going to GCF out of the first 2 terms. I think you're right. Say it louder. You're right. And what will be left behind when I pull a 3x out of the first 2 terms? When I pull a 3x out of a 6x squared, what's left behind? Yep. When I pull a 3x, this is a trick question, out of a 3x, what's left behind? Don't say 0. 1, so plus 1. I do the same thing for the second half, Brendan. GCF out of the last 2 terms. Positive or negative? Reminds me to put a plus sign, right? And what will be left behind? 2x. And a plus 1. Folks, how did we know that we were right? What was our error check on this line? The brackets are the same. Good habit, takes 1 second to glance at it. So we know that Brendan has done this right. What was the final answer? It was drop the bracket down, and what was in front became your second bracket. Okay? Curtis, that's what we did a little bit, a couple of days ago, right? I'm not going to do B. If you want more practice on grouping, you can try B. What I want to do is show you where we use this. We're going to use this trick. We're going to use this trick of grouping Halen by turning these, when there is something in front of the x squared, by turning one of these into a 4-termer and group it. That's going to be our strategy. How are we going to do that? Take a look at this one here, 6x squared plus 11x plus 4. First thing I always see, if there was a GCF of 6, I could factor it out, and then I would have one of these, which was last day, do in our head. That was the no one knows. That was the full house beats a flush. Sadly, there ain't one. So here's how we start out. We first of all ask ourselves a question. We look for two numbers that multiply to 24. Can you see where the 24 came from? Okay, you have to memorize this step. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to first and last now. And add to 11. Can you see where the 11 came from? So it's almost the same way we did last day, except last day we only looked at the last number and the middle term. Now, because there's something in the front of the x squared, we have to take that into account. And we do that by saying, oh, now we're going to look for two numbers that multiply to the front and the back. Are there two numbers that multiply to 24 and add to 11? Write them over here, 8 and 3. That's going to tell us how to decompose this question. We're going to decompose part of this question into an 8 and a 3. How? We drop the 6x squared down. And we drop the, leave a space, we drop the positive 4 down. But you see that 11x in the middle? I'm going to decompose it. You know what I'm going to decompose that 11x into? I'm going to decompose it into an 8x and a 3x. Mac, is that not still an 11x technically? So it's still the original question. I'm not changing the question. I am making it look differently. Mac, how many terms do I have now? The only thing I know how to try with 4 is to see if I can factor by grouping. And we're going to try that right now. We're going to cover up the last two terms. GCF out of the first two terms. Is there one? 2x. What's left behind? 3x plus 4. GCF out of the last two terms. There is one. It's the one we always forget about. Positive 1. What's left behind? Sarah, can I tell if I've done this right? Oh, the brackets are the same. Can you see the final answer? 3x plus 4, yes? 2x plus 1. Ta-da! You know what? That's not what I should have done. When we finished that question, there should have been a distant roll of thunder, and there should have been like lightning going off. This is profound. We took a question that we had no way of knowing how to do. We turned it into something we can do fairly easily. In fact, we turned it into something that I just gave you a quiz on. How can we convince ourselves that we're right? Put your pencils down. I'm going to FOIL this out and see if I get the original question. Oh. When you're factoring, if you're ever writing a quiz or a test, you don't hand it in early. What you do afterwards is you go and you multiply all your factored questions out. They better look like your original question that you started out with. Okay? You hear what I just said, Rob? What did I just say? Cole, what did I just say? You ready? I'm giving you some sage advice, Carl. This quiz or this test on factoring, you don't hand it in early. What you do when you finish is you go back and every factoring question, FOIL your answer out. It better be your original question. So you got a built-in error check there too. So I'm going to quickly FOIL this out. I would get 6x squared I would get 8x, 3x, 4. I would get 6x squared plus 11x plus 4. Is that the original question that we started out with way up there? We're right. What's the procedure? Similar to what we did last day. Find two numbers that multiply to first and last and add to the middle. Those don't help you factor, but they help you decompose it. Those two numbers are what you're going to decompose the middle term into. Let's try a couple more. Let's do B. Okay? All right, Mr. Duick, I want to do a minimum amount of work because I'm lazy, but a maximum bang for my buck. You got a way to do this? Yes, I do. I'm looking for two numbers that do what? Multiply to what and add to what? Over here in the margin somewhere, I write down times to 12, add to 7. What are two numbers that times to 12 and add to 7?
3 and 4.
Then underneath that, I just draw a line and I go 3, 4. That keeps track of what I'm doing, Rachel, but that's about a minimal amount of work, but I still know what the heck I did. You can show more work than that, and you can write big charts and all sorts. Forget it. Now what? Drop the first term down. Drop the last term down. Decompose the 7x. What am I going to decompose the 7x into? A positive 3x and a positive 4x. Mr. Duick, what if I wrote positive 4x first and then did positive 3x? Our work will look different, but we'll end up with the same answer at the end. So it's a nice, fairly foolproof system. Grouping. GCF out of the first two, Nathan. There is one. I heard someone say it. Did you hear it? X. Right? And that's going to leave me with a 2x and a positive 3. Nathan, GCF out of the last two. I don't think there's an x in everything here. 2. Positive or negative? And remember, we did say in the grouping, sometimes you'll need to factor out a negative to make the signs work, but in this case, plus, yes. And what's left behind? 2x plus 3. Hey, we're right. Final answer, 2x plus 3, x plus 2. Let's try D. D has some negatives in it. I'm going to assume automatically that negatives make things trickier. They do. D, what am I looking for? Two numbers that multiply to D. We're doing D. This has got negatives in it. Not 18. I got to be fussy.
Negative.
Ah. And add to 17. What are two numbers that times to negative 18 and add to positive 17? Negative 18 and positive 1 adds to negative 17. I want to add to positive 17. I think you got the negatives mixed up. Negative 1, positive 18. Yes? Now, problem. If you don't know your times tables, I can't possibly help you. This method does not work if you can't find these two numbers. You can get your calculator out and start guessing and checking, but you're just going to be painfully slow. Did your teachers in earlier years stress the importance of timetables? This was one reason. So positive 18, negative 1. Now what? Drop the first and last terms down. Decompose the 17x into a positive 18x and a minus 1x. And this is one of the few times that I do put that invisible 1 in front of the x because this is tough. So I'm being a little more paranoid. Graham, you with me? Matt can put whatever he's showing you away before I walk over there and smack him. Thank you. Nothing. You were distracting him somehow. Now what? Oh, try the rest of it yourself. Group. I think in the second one, you might end up factoring out a negative. Yeah? I was going to factor out a positive one from the second. That doesn't work. Negative one if you want to get the brackets to match. Final answer, there's an x plus 3 and a 6x minus 1. Yep. By the way, if you haven't clued in, it becomes twice as hard when there's negatives because there's twice as many possibilities, because now one number might be positive, one number might be negative. You got to try all sorts of stuff. Sorry. How many got D okay? Okay. E. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to what and add to what? Multiply to, not 24. Negative 24. And add to negative 2. What are two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add to negative 2? It's going to be some combination of 6 and 4, because those are the ones that are 2 apart from each other. Negative 6, positive 4? Is that right? Yeah? By the way, if you're wrong on the, Brandon, remember a couple questions ago, you're wrong on the signs. The nice thing is, if you wrote those numbers down, it's pretty easy to make this a plus and make this a minus and make the quick correction without having to rewrite a bunch of stuff, which is the other reason I use this method. So, we drop the first term down. We drop the last term down. We decompose the middle term into a negative 6a and a positive 4a. Try the rest. Whoop, that's a mistake. Good gosh, another mistake. Whew, thank goodness I froze the screen. Oh, I'm recording this. This is going to go online. They're going to see that I was dumb. Oh well. They know already. Believe me, my viewers know I'm the king of mistakes. Yeah? A 3a plus 4 and an a minus 2? Yep.
Does it matter what order?
As long as you have an a and a minus 2 and a 3a and a plus 4, you can write them in any order as long as the two brackets are identical to my two brackets. So a minus 2, 3a plus 4. In fact, Rob, if you had written the 4a there and the minus 6a there, you would have ended up with the brackets in a different order. That's why I said earlier, it doesn't matter what order you write them in. Our work may look different, but we'll end up with the same answer. F is tricky. What am I looking for in F? Two numbers that multiply to what and add to what? Multiply to positive 12, add to negative 8. How can I multiply to a positive and add to a negative? Yeah? Ah, they're both negative. Okay, what are two numbers that multiply to a 12 and add to a negative 8? He knows his timetables right now. He's just sitting, it's worth learning those things. Some of you are, curse my laziness in elementary school. Good, take it from there. Kirkland, thumbs up. Yep. That's every possible combination I can throw at you. All positive, not too bad because there's way less numbers to go with. Second term is negative. Okay, that's the toughest one because there's lots of possibilities. Second term is positive. Middle term is negative. That means they're both going to be negative numbers. That's the only way you can go multiply to a positive and add to a negative. That's it. Okay. How many of you got that okay? Oh, excellent. Take a look at this little heading here. What have we added to the question? What looks different now? There's a y squared at the end. Hey, what happened in the last lesson when there was a y squared at the end? What did that mean? You just put a y at the end. You ignored it and you just put a y at the end of each bracket? Okay, done. Well, okay, maybe we should try one. But it's going to be the same thing. You know what? I'm going to tell you right now there's going to be an x in the front of each bracket. There's going to be a y at the end of each bracket. What do you want to... You know what? Let's do A, because A has a positive end but a negative middle. I think this is going to be one of those ones where, well, let's see. So I already know my final bracket's going to look like this. There's going to be an x, a y, and then numbers in front of each of them. Okay. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to what and add to what? I disagree. Someone said -4 and negative... Oh, someone told me the numbers. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to what? +4. And add to what? To -5. What are numbers that multiply to +4 and add to -5? Yeah. Good. I'm going to factor this. Let's see. 2x squared drops down. The 2y squared drops down. And I'm going to break the -5xy into a -4xy and a -1xy. GCF out of the first two. GCF out of the last two. I think a -y, yeah? There is a y in both of the second two terms, yes? And I was going to just pull it out, and then I said, oh no, the signs don't match now. I better pull out a -y, because then I'll get a positive x and a positive 2y. Oh, no, not a positive 2y. I factored out a negative, Mr. Dewick. I get a -2y. And that's a good thing because my brackets match. Final answer, there's going to be an x minus 2y and a 2x minus y. Yeah. It's about as tough as we can throw at you. What's your homework? Sorry? I'm not sure, actually. Okay. First sheet, what happened to the baseball player who was unfaithful to his wife? Ooh, an adult risque question. Well, no. What you're going to do now, some of you write really microscopically small. If you can and you want to do your work right on here, go ahead. I could never fit my work on here. You'll notice each one of these takes one line to break it up, one line to group, one line to factor. It is a three-line question. It is possible to fit three really small lines in there, but I'd do it on a separate piece of paper if I were you. When you factor it, you'll find one of the factors in this column, one of the factors in this column. You'll put the number and the letter down here. So once you find the pair of factors, maybe the first one factor, well, what does the first one factor into? I can do this one in my head. No, I can factor it. So this is the whole, I let my mind go blank and I just see the answer. Again, I have no idea how I do this, but I know it's going to be 3x, it's going to be x, it's going to be plus 2, plus 1. I'm pretty sure it factors into that. Let me double check and FOIL it out. Yes, it does. So there's the x plus 1, number 12. There's the 3x plus 2. I'll put a W where there's a 12. See how we put that together? Okay. So set 1 goes with set 1 answers, set 2 goes with set 2 answers, set 3 goes with set 3 answers, set 4 goes with set 4 answers. That's a total of 20 questions. Turn the page over. Okay. Number 1 and number 2, or sorry, number 1 and number 8 are starting out with some tiles. So it's saying, first of all, write out the polynomial expression. Number 1 is 2x squared plus 7x plus 6, and then factor it. Same with number 8. When you factor them, it says find both factors in the rectangle below. With me? And cross out each box containing a factor. So each question you're going to cross out 2 boxes. Let's do one together, shall we? I'll do, oh heck, I'll do number 4. How does this one factor, Mr. Dewick? It's going to factor into, wow, this one's a bit trickier. A 3x, a 2x, no, it's not, Mr. Dewick. It's going to factor into a 6x and a 1x. 6x, x is going to be 11 and a 1. It factors into that, trust me. So I would cross out the 6x plus 11, and I would cross out the, where's the x plus 1? Hello, x plus 1, where are you? Right there. At the very, very end, you should have an answer. This is not the answer. I think this is a lame joke to go with the lame joke that is the answer. Okay? You got a bit more room on this sheet. If you want to try fitting your work onto here, go ahead. But again, I think I'd advise just doing these both on a separate piece of paper. Any questions at all? So there is a total of 18 minutes left. I've given you a total of 34 questions. It works out to about 30 seconds-ish a question, which is a bit, you're going to have some homework this time. I've tried my best, but we do need to practice this. I'm going to shut up. You have the rest of class. Kick butt.